Hi, and welcome to a short introduction to stitching with XuvTools. I will start the stitcher now and add some files to the project. Here I have some stacks in size LSM format that I got from a friend. Let's calculate the thumbnails. These are actually a maximum intensity projection of the stacks I just loaded. Now what I could do is I could place the stacks manually if I know roughly where they belong. I could try to stitch them manually or correct the stitching, but this is actually not so easy and very time consuming. So let's not do it this way, but rather use the automatic stitching. And here's the really interesting part where you should pay attention. There are two sliders that influence runtime and quality of the stitching you get. The uppermost slider is used for the signal to noise ratio. If you have no stage coordinates and you have a very bad signal to noise ratio, you should increase this slider to quality, which will use more memory and take longer for the stitching, but gives you more accurate results. And if you have a very good signal to noise ratio, you can actually decrease the slider a little bit. But for most people, the center setting is quite okay. And the other slider is similarity threshold. And similarity means how similar two stacks have to be for the stitcher to accept that they belong next to each other. The similarity threshold setting is usually good to be set very high in the beginning. When you set it very high in the beginning, this means the stitcher will try for a long time to find perfectly matching pairs. And then later, after the stitching is finished, you can decrease the slider until you get a complete stitching with good enough quality. When you start with a low similarity threshold, you cannot increase it later because it will mean for the stitcher to finish fast and give you the result with the low quality that you asked for. So always start with a high similarity threshold and a medium quality setting. Now let's run the stitcher and make it ignore the current tile coordinates since we didn't have stage coordinates initially. While the stitcher is running, it should actually show you the layout it has already found. But since the similarity threshold I set is quite high, you won't see any progress in the tiles directly. So let's wait until the stitcher is finished. So now that the stitcher is finished, you might wonder, hey, where's my stitching? Let's go back to the similarity threshold. The setting of 0.9 means that you only accept the best possible matches. Let's decrease it a little bit to 0.8. Still no stacks match with such a high similarity threshold. Okay, we go down more, and suddenly the first pair appears that matches with 0.7 similarity threshold. This means these stacks are the most similar we can find in our dataset. And if we go further down, more stacks will match. Until around 0.5, finally we get a good stitching. Okay, so this stitching can be saved now. But just for the sake of it, let's go down even further with the similarity threshold. Then suddenly you will see that even stacks that are dissimilar are piled onto one large stack, which doesn't make sense. So never go too low with the similarity threshold. Always start with a high value and decrease it until you're satisfied with the stitching. This is the most important part of getting a good and accurate stitching. Now we can save our stitch dataset. And we're finished.